I'm Cassandra King, 32 years old, and I never thought a family party would change everything. It was our annual fall festival gathering at a ranch in Boise, Idaho, a big deal for my family, with everyone showing up to eat, laugh, and pretend we're perfect. I'd shelled out $25,000 to make it happen, covering everything from the catering to the decorations. Why? Because my sister always gets what she wants, and I'm the one who makes it happen. We were seated around the tables, the air buzzing with chatter. My sister stood up, glass in hand, ready for her usual speech about how perfect her life is. She's the golden child, the one who can do no wrong. Then she turned to me and smiled, and I knew something was coming. Some people, she said, her voice thick with fake pity, just try too hard to matter. Every eye turned to me. My dad, my mom, my uncle, my grandma, all watching like I was the punchline of a joke. I didn't say a word. My heart was racing, but my face stayed calm. I stood up, pulled out my phone. Everyone thought I was just stepping away, but I opened an app, tapped once, and sat back down. 5 minutes later, my sister's phone buzzed. She looked down. Her face went pale. The whole table went silent. My dad leaned toward me and whispered, "What did you just do, Cassandra?" I smiled and replied, "I'm done." The look on their faces, priceless. And they had no idea what was coming next. If you've ever felt like your family takes you for granted, hit that subscribe button and share this story. You won't believe how this ends. You're probably wondering why I was the one footing the bill for that fall festival party, $25,000, no small change. It wasn't just about the party. For 2 years, I'd been covering my sister's entire lifestyle. Her rented studio for Instagram photo shoots, her designer bags, her car payments. You name it, I paid for it. Why? Because my parents made it clear that's what family does. Or rather, what I was supposed to do. I'm a CPA, a number cruncher who lives in a one-bedroom apartment in Boise, Idaho. I budget every penny, skip vacations, and drive a 10-year-old Honda to make ends meet. Meanwhile, my sister lives like she's some kind of celebrity. She's an influencer, always posting about her perfect life, her perfect outfits, her perfect everything. And me, I was the invisible one, the one who made it all possible. Every month I'd get calls from my dad or my mom, their voices heavy with guilt trips. "Your sister's building her brand," they'd say. "She needs your help. Don't let her down." I'd bite my tongue, transfer the money, and watch my savings shrink. It started small, a few $100 here and there for her content creation. Then it snowballed. By last year, I was covering her rent, her credit card bills, even her gym membership. All told, I'd dropped over $50,000 on her life. My parents never asked if I was okay, if I needed a break. They just kept pushing, saying she was almost there with her career, that I was the stable one who could handle it. Stable. That's what they called it. I called it being taken for granted. At the party, it wasn't just about the money. It was the way everyone acted, like my sister was the star while I was just the bank. My uncle, a retired Marine who always spoke his mind, was telling some old war story to a group of cousins. My grandma, who watched everything but said little, sat quietly, her eyes flicking between us. My aunt, my dad's sister, who knew more than she let on, sipped her drink and stayed out of the spotlight. Meanwhile, my sister was holding court, her husband nodding along like her biggest fan. She stood up, phone in hand, snapping selfies for her followers. "Just hit 20,000 likes on my last post," she bragged, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. That's what hard work looks like. Hard work? I wanted to laugh. Her hard work was posing in front of a camera while I paid for the lights. Her husband, a car salesman who barely made his quotas, chimed in. "She's killing it out there." Killing it, sure, on my dime. I sat there, my plate untouched, feeling like a ghost at my own family's party. Nobody asked about my job, my life, my plans. It was always about her. Always. The worst part. My parents were in on it. They'd call me after every family gathering, reminding me how important it was to keep my sister's image intact. She's got potential, my dad would say, his tone firm, like I was the one failing if I didn't step up. My mom was softer, but just as relentless. You're so good with money, Cassandra, she'd coo. You can afford it? Afford it. I was barely holding it together, skipping my own bills to cover hers, but they didn't care. To them, I was the reliable one, the one who didn't need attention, the one who'd always say yes. I'd tried talking to my sister about it once, maybe a year ago. I called her, asked if she could start paying her own way, maybe get a part-time job to help. She laughed, actually, laughed. Cassandra, I'm building something big, she said. You wouldn't understand. Just keep doing what you do best. What I do best. Apparently, that was being her personal ATM. Her husband backed her up, saying I should be proud to support her brand. I hung up feeling smaller than ever. Looking back, I don't know why I kept going along with it. Maybe I thought that's what family meant, sacrificing for each other. Maybe I was afraid of letting my parents down. Or maybe I just didn't want to be the bad guy. But sitting at that party watching her flaunt her fake perfect life, something inside me started to crack. I'd spent years being the one who held it all together while she got the applause. And for what? To be mocked in front of everyone I cared about. The air at the fall festival party felt like it had been sucked out of the room the moment I canceled that $10,000 payment. My sister's face, usually so smug, was frozen in shock, her phone still clutched in her hand after getting that notification from the ranch's event planner. Everyone else, cousins, aunts, uncles, even the kids, stopped talking, their eyes darting between us. I could feel the weight of their stares, but I wasn't backing down. Not this time. I stood up straighter, my voice steady. I'm done paying for this party, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. If you want it to go on, figure it out yourselves. My sister's jaw dropped, and for once she didn't have a snappy comeback ready. Her husband, always quick to play, her cheerleader, jumped in first. Cassandra, you can't just do that. He snapped, his voice sharp with panic. This is a family event. You're making us all look bad. Look bad. I almost laughed. They'd been happy to let me foot the bill, but now I was the problem. My dad leaned forward, his face tight with disapproval. Cassandra, this isn't the time or place. He said, his tone low but firm, like he was scolding a child. You're ruining the day for everyone. My mom chimed in, her voice softer but no less cutting. We raised you to be better than this. Think about your sister. Think about her. That's all I'd been doing for years, and where had it gotten me? Nowhere, just a smaller bank account and a family that didn't even see me. My sister finally found her voice, her words dripping with desperation. Cassandra, you can't just pull the plug like this, she said, stepping closer, her eyes wide. Do you know how much this party means to me? To all of us? You're embarrassing me in front of everyone. Embarrassing her. After everything I'd done, she had the nerve to make this about her image. I shook my head, my hands clenched at my sides. Jill, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided. I don't matter. I said, my voice calm but cold. Her face flushed, and I could tell she wasn't used to me pushing back. Her husband stepped in again, pointing a finger at me. You're being selfish, Cassandra, he said. You know how hard Jill works on her brand. You can't just sabotage her like this. Sabotage. That word hit me like a slap. I'd been the one keeping her so-called brand afloat, and now I was the villain. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Uncle Edward's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Enough, he said, standing up, his retired Marine posture commanding the room. Cassandra's right. She's been carrying this family for too long, and all you do is take. Maybe it's time you all figured out how to stand on your own 2 feet. His words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. A few cousins shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. My sister glared at him, but she didn't dare argue with Uncle Edward. He wasn't the type to back down. Grandma, who'd been silent the whole time, finally spoke. It's about time someone said it. she said, her voice quiet but sharp, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time that night I felt seen. Not as the bank, not as the reliable one, but as me. Aunt Cynthia, sitting nearby, didn't say a word, but I caught her watching me, her expression unreadable. I wondered what she was thinking, but I didn't have time to figure it out. My dad tried to regain control. "This is a family matter," he said, raising his voice. "We don't air our dirty laundry in front of everyone. Cassandra, sit down and let's talk this out." Talk it out. I'd tried that before, and it always ended the same way, with me giving in. Not anymore. I looked at him, then at my mom, who was nodding like she agreed with him. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "I'm done being your solution to everything." My sister's voice cracked as she tried one last time. "Cassandra, please," she said, almost begging now. "Just pay the balance and we'll sort this out later. Don't ruin this for me. Ruin it for her." That was the last straw. I grabbed my purse, my hands shaking with a mix of anger and relief. "You've got it all under control, Jill," I said. "You don't need me." I turned and walked out, past the tables, past the stunned faces, past the life I'd been propping up for years. As I headed to my car, I heard my sister calling after me, her voice fading into the background. I didn't look back. The party was their problem now, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally standing up for myself. But what I didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Something bigger was coming. Something that would turn everything I thought I knew about my family upside down. 2 weeks after I walked out of that fall festival party, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Cynthia. "Come over," it said. "We need to talk." I hadn't heard from her since the party, where she'd sat quietly watching everything unfold. I figured she wanted to play peacemaker, maybe convince me to smooth things over with my sister or my parents. I almost ignored it, but something in her tone, short, urgent, made me grab my keys and drive to her place in Boise. Aunt Cynthia opened the door, her face serious, none of her usual warmth. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Cassandra, sit down," she said, pointing to the couch. "There's something you need to know about your parents." My stomach dropped. I'd been bracing for more drama, but the way she said it told me this was bigger than another guilt trip about the party. She took a deep breath and started talking. "Your dad and mom sold the old family condo downtown a year ago," she said. "They got $100,000 for it. Cash." I blinked, trying to process. $100,000. My parents never mentioned selling anything. They always acted like money was tight, like they couldn't help my sister because they were stretched thin. Aunt Cynthia's eyes narrowed. "They didn't tell you or your sister. They didn't want anyone to know." I felt my chest tighten, but I stayed quiet, letting her go on. "They took that money and invested it in some real estate stock," she said. "Thought they'd double it, maybe triple it. But it tanked. Almost all of it gone." She paused, watching me like she was waiting for me to explode. I didn't. Not yet. "They kept it a secret," she continued, "because they didn't want to look like failures. And all this time, they let you keep paying for your sister's life, knowing they had that money before it went south." The words hit me like a punch. $100,000. They had $100,000, and they still let me drain my savings to cover my sister's rent, her designer clothes, her car. But it got worse. Aunt Cynthia leaned forward, her voice low. "That's not all, Cassandra. You've been paying their health insurance premiums for the last 6 months, and the roof repair on their house last spring. That was your money, too. They didn't tell you about the condo sale because they wanted you to keep covering for them." I sat there, stunned, my mind racing. I'd been sending them money every month, thinking they needed it to get by. Health insurance repairs, I thought I was helping my parents stay afloat, but they'd had $100,000 and chose to gamble it away instead of telling me the truth. They let me sacrifice my own financial security while they hid their mistake. And they let me carry my sister too, knowing they could have stepped in. I felt sick, like the ground had shifted under me. All those years of being the reliable one, the one who never said no, and this was what they'd been doing behind my back. I looked at Aunt Cynthia, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't know the whole story until recently," she said. "I found out when your dad asked me to keep quiet about it. But after what happened at the party, I couldn't stay silent anymore." Anger started bubbling up hot and sharp. My parents hadn't just favored my sister, they'd lied to me, used me, and let me think it was my job to hold the family together. And my sister. She was just as bad, demanding more while never questioning where the money came from. I stood up, pacing the room, my hands shaking. "They played me," I said, more to myself than to Aunt Cynthia. "All of them." She nodded, her face grim. "I'm sorry, Cassandra. I thought you deserved to know." Deserved to know? I deserved a lot more than that. I deserved a family that didn't treat me like a doormat. I pulled out my phone, my fingers moving before I could think twice. I opened the banking app and canceled every recurring payment I'd set up: my sister's rent, her credit card bills, my parents' insurance, the contractor for their house repairs. All of it. Done. Then I sent a group text to my sister, my dad, and my mom. "I'm done paying for any of you. You're on your own." My phone lit up almost instantly. A text from my sister Cassandra. "What's wrong with you? You can't do this. Fix it now." I stared at the words, her desperation practically jumping off the screen. Fix it. She still thought she could snap her fingers and I'd jump. I didn't reply. I turned my phone off and looked at Aunt Cynthia. "I'm done," I said, and for the first time I meant it. Not just the party, not just the money, I was done with all of them. Aunt Cynthia didn't try to stop me or talk me down. She just nodded like she understood. "You're stronger than they give you credit for," she said. I didn't feel strong. I felt betrayed, raw, like someone had ripped open a wound I didn't know I had. But I also felt something else, a spark of resolve. I'd spent years trying to keep my family happy, but they'd been playing me the whole time. No more. As I drove home, my mind kept circling back to that $100,000. My parents could have helped my sister. They could have eased the burden on me. Instead, they chose to hide it, to let me carry the weight while they chased a bad bet. And my sister, she was complicit, happy to take without asking questions. I wasn't just angry, I was done being their safety net. What happened next would show them exactly what that meant. A month after I sent that text telling my sister and my parents they were on their own, the fallout started hitting them hard. I'd cut off every payment: my sister's rent, her credit card bills, my parents' health insurance, their house repairs. For the first time, I wasn't bailing anyone out, and watching them face the consequences felt like taking a deep breath after years of holding it in. My sister and her husband got slapped with the unpaid $10,000 bill from the ranch for the fall festival party. They thought they could charm their way out of it, but the event planner wasn't playing games. When they couldn't pay, the planner threatened to sue. I heard from a cousin that they started selling off their fancy stuff: her designer handbags, his golf clubs, even the custom furniture in their downtown Boise apartment. By the end of the month, they'd moved out of their sleek, Instagram-worthy place and into a cramped one-bedroom on the outskirts of town. It wasn't the kind of address my sister would ever post about. She didn't take it lying down, though. She landed a job at a coffee shop downtown, steaming milk and ringing up orders for minimum wage. But even that couldn't humble her. She'd show up to work in her last pair of designer sunglasses, acting like she was still living the high life. Her Instagram was a masterclass in denial-filtered photos of her coffee breaks, captioned with nonsense about new beginnings and hustle vibes. She was still chasing likes, still pretending she was somebody, even as her world fell apart. I scrolled through her posts one night, not out of pity but curiosity. It was almost sad, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. She'd made her choices, and now she was living with them. Her husband didn't handle it any better. He was a car salesman who relied on my sister's brand to keep up appearances. Without my money propping them up, his charm started wearing thin. I heard from Uncle Edward that things got rough between them, arguments over money, late nights at the bar, the usual. By the 6-week mark, he'd moved out, crashing with a buddy, while my sister stayed in their new apartment alone. They weren't officially divorced, but everyone could see the cracks. He stopped showing up to family calls, and she stopped mentioning him online. It was the kind of quiet split that nobody talks about but everyone notices. My parents weren't faring much better. Without that $100,000 windfall they'd lost on bad investments, and without me covering their insurance or home repairs they were scrambling. My dad sold his pickup truck, the one he'd bragged about for years, to cover their bills. My mom started clipping coupons, something she hadn't done since I was a kid. They'd call me sometimes, leaving voicemails I didn't answer. "Cassandra, let's put this behind us," my dad said in one. His voice strained. "The party was a misunderstanding. We're family." My mom's messages were softer, almost pleading. "We didn't mean to upset you, honey. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. I'd heard enough of their excuses over the years, and I wasn't buying it anymore. I wasn't gloating, but I won't lie. It felt good to see them face reality. For years, I'd been the one making sacrifices, stretching my budget to keep them comfortable, while they treated me like an afterthought. Now they were learning what it meant to stand on their own. My sister, who'd never worked a day in her life before, this was pouring coffee for strangers. Her husband was sleeping on a couch. My parents were selling off their pride to pay their bills. It wasn't revenge, it was just consequences. I kept my distance, focusing on my own life for once. I started putting money back into my savings, something I hadn't done in years. I even booked a weekend trip to Seattle just because I could. It wasn't much, but it felt like freedom. Uncle Edward called me one evening, his voice gruff but warm. "You did the right thing, kid," he said. They needed a wake-up call. I smiled, grateful for his support, but I didn't need anyone to tell me I was right. I knew it. My sister wasn't done trying, though. She sent me texts one after another, each one more desperate than the last. "Cassandra, I can't believe you're doing this to me." One read. "I'm working now. Okay? Can you just help with the rent one more time?" Another one came a day later. "You're tearing this family apart. Tearing it apart." That was rich coming from her. I didn't respond. I'd said everything I needed to in that one text. "You're on your own." She wasn't my responsibility anymore. My parents tried a different angle. My dad sent a long message about how they were struggling and how I was turning my back on family. My mom's texts were full of guilt trips, talking about how stressed they were, how they didn't know how to make ends meet. I read them, but I didn't feel the old pull to fix things. They'd made their choices just like my sister had. If they wanted to keep living in denial, that was on them. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. They'd all been leaning on me for so long, they forgot how to stand up. 3 months after I cut off all financial support, my parents showed up at my apartment in Boise unannounced. I opened the door to find my dad and mom standing there, looking smaller somehow, like the weight of their choices had finally caught up with them. I hadn't spoken to them since the fallout, hadn't answered their texts or calls. I stepped aside to let them in, not because I wanted to, but because I knew this conversation was coming. I just didn't expect it to feel so final. My dad sat on the couch, his hands clasped tightly, avoiding my eyes. My mom perched next to him, her face pinched with worry. "Cassandra?" She started, her voice soft, like she was trying to soothe a child. "We're sorry for how things turned out. We never meant for you to feel hurt." I stood across from them, arms crossed, waiting for the catch. There was always a catch with them. My dad cleared his throat. "We just wanted to keep the peace," he said. "You know how your sister is. She's always needed a little extra help. We thought you understood." Understood? I felt a spark of anger flare in my chest. They thought I understood being used, being lied to, being the one who always had to give. "You mean you wanted me to keep paying for her life?" I said, my voice steady but sharp. "And yours. While you hid $100,000 from me, while you let me think you needed my help." My mom flinched, but my dad's face hardened. "Cassandra, that's not fair," he said. "We made a mistake with that investment. We didn't want to burden you with it." "Burden me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You let me drain my savings for years. You let me cover her rent, her clothes, her car. You let me pay your insurance, your repairs, all while you sat on that money and said nothing." "That's not a mistake, Dad. That's selfish." My mom's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't done. "You chose her over me every time. You chose your own comfort over me. And you expect me to just forgive and forget." My dad stood up, his voice rising. "We're your parents, Cassandra. We raised you. We gave you everything. You don't get to talk to us like that." I didn't back down. "You raised me to be responsible," I said. And I was. I took care of all of you. But I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being the one who fixes everything while you take me for granted." My mom reached out, her voice pleading. "Cassandra, please. We're family. We can work this out." I shook my head. "No, Mom. I'm done. I'm not your bank anymore, and I'm not your daughter if that's all I am to you." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. My dad stared at me, his jaw tight like he couldn't believe I'd said it. My mom covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I didn't feel guilt, not anymore. I felt free, like I'd finally shed a weight I'd been carrying for years. "You need to leave," I said, my voice calm but firm. They didn't argue. They walked out, and I closed the door behind them, knowing I might never open it to them again. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. "Cassandra," it read, "I know I messed up. I shouldn't have taken you for granted. But you don't understand the pressure I'm under. Everyone expects me to be perfect online. I needed your help to keep it together. Can we talk?" Even in her apology, she couldn't help but make excuses, blaming her brand and her followers. It was the same old story, everything was always about her. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, letting her stew in her own mess. But I wanted her to hear it, to know exactly where I stood. I typed back, "It's not my job to carry you, Jill. It never was." I hit send and turned off my phone. Her words didn't pull at me anymore. I wasn't her lifeline, her ATM, or her backup plan. I was done. The next morning, I got a call from Uncle Edward. His voice was gruff, but there was a warmth to it I hadn't heard in a while. "Cassandra, I heard what happened with your parents," he said. "I'm proud of you, kid. You stood your ground. Not many people would have the guts to do that." I smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't felt in months. "Thanks, Uncle Edward," I said. "I just couldn't do it anymore." He chuckled. "Good. You're better than they deserve." His words stayed with me, a reminder that not everyone in my family saw me as a means to an end. Grandma had been right at the party, someone needed to say it. Aunt Cynthia had been right to tell me the truth. And Uncle Edward was right to be proud. I'd spent years trying to hold my family together, but now I was choosing myself. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And as I hung up the phone, I knew the hardest part was still ahead, figuring out what came next on my own terms. 6 months after I told my parents and my sister we were done, my life felt like it finally belonged to me. I'd spent so long carrying their weight that I'd forgotten what it was like to just be me, a CPA in Boise, Idaho, who didn't owe anyone anything. I threw myself into my work, taking on new clients, and even starting a side project helping small businesses with their taxes. For the first time in years, I was saving money for myself, not for someone else's dreams. I bought a new desk for my apartment, signed up for a cooking class, and started running in the mornings. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and that was enough. My sister was still working at that coffee shop downtown. From what I heard through cousins, she hadn't changed much. She'd show up to her shifts in overpriced outfits she couldn't afford anymore, still trying to play the part of an influencer. Her Instagram posts were fewer now, mostly recycled photos with captions about resilience and authenticity, but I could tell she was clinging to the image she'd built even as it crumbled. She hadn't reached out since that last text, and I hadn't either. I didn't need her approval or her apologies. I was past that. Her husband Daniel was long gone. He'd left Boise a few months back, taking a job at a car dealership in Spokane. Nobody in the family had heard from him since, not even my sister. Their separation wasn't a surprise, but it was still strange to think about her alone in that tiny apartment on the edge of town. I didn't wish her harm, but I wasn't going to fix her life for her. She'd have to figure that out on her own. My parents were struggling too. Without my support, they'd had to tighten their belts. My dad picked up part-time work driving for a delivery service, and my mom started selling homemade crafts online. They didn't call me anymore, and I heard from Aunt Cynthia that they'd stopped showing up to family gatherings. They were too proud to admit they'd messed up, too stubborn to reach out without expecting me to cave. I didn't feel sorry for them. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. One evening, as I was going through emails, my phone pinged with a text from Grandma. Cassandra, it read, "You did what no one else could. I'm proud of you." I stared at the words, my throat tightening. Grandma didn't say much, but when she did, it carried weight. Her message felt like a quiet nod, a reminder that I wasn't alone in seeing the truth. I typed back a simple "Thank you, Grandma," and set my phone down, a small smile on my face. Uncle Edward and Aunt Cynthia had stood by me too, checking in now and then, but Grandma's words hit differently. They felt like closure. Looking back, I realized the biggest lesson wasn't about money or family drama. It was about standing up for myself. When family takes you for granted, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. I'd spent years thinking I had to keep everyone happy, that saying no would make me the bad guy. But saying no saved me. It gave me back my life, my choices, my peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I was proud of the woman I'd become, of the strength I didn't know I had. To everyone who's listened to my story, thank you for sticking with me until the end. It means the world to share this and know you're out there relating to the messiness of family and the power of choosing yourself. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community. We're all about real stories and real lessons, and I'd love to have you along for the next one. Thank you truly for being here.